The movie begins with an eerie video footage of an experiment in progress. A lifeless pig rests on an operating table while a group of medical researchers conduct an experiment to bring it back to life. They administer a mysterious serum into the pig and activate their machine. After a while, though, the pig suddenly comes to life and moves erratically. Where the hell am I? But it soon returns to its motionless state. Following this, we meet medical scientists Frank, the project lead, and his fiancée Zoe, who have made a breakthrough in their research. Their team consists of tech-savvy Nico, brainiac stoner Clay, and charming videographer Eva, who documents their experiments and investigations. Together, they have collaborated to develop a groundbreaking serum named Lazarus. This serum is designed with the primary aim of preserving neural function in coma patients and prolonging the window during which they can be safely revived. Unexpectedly, it also displays the potential to bring the dead back to life. But not James Franco, though. The team decides to test the serum on a recently deceased dog named Rocky. While Eva captures the process on film, there seems to be no response initially. However, on the second attempt, Rocky begins to bark and move around. What the hell's going on? Thus marking their experiment a success. Later that evening, Frank and Zoe bring Rocky home and notice some strange changes in its condition. However, they believe it's due to the shock of being revived from death. During the night, Rocky makes his way into the bedroom and climbs onto the bed. Strangely, it stays there and watches Zoe as she sleeps. Damn! The following day at the laboratory, the team conducts an MRI scan on Rocky. Through it, they discover that the dog's brain is going through a significant amount of abnormal activity. They also find that the serum is still present in its bloodstream, although it's supposed to dissipate within hours. That night, Clay is working alone in the lab, while Rocky is securely kept in its cage. Suddenly, he hears a loud crash and discovers the fridge open with its contents scattered across the room. Clay also notices that Rocky has managed to escape from its cage. He tries to lure it out, but to no avail. As he continues searching the room, the dog suddenly comes face to face with him and growls in an aggressive manner. The following day, Clay shares the incident with the rest of the team. He insists that the dog must be put down before its aggression escalates further. However, the team dismisses his concerns, doubting him and thinking he's overreacting. Later that day, the university dean calls Frank and berates him for his questionable experiments. She believes that he is playing God by reviving dead animals. She's not even remotely impressed, not even a little bit. So she terminates the program and withdraws their funding. Frank becomes convinced that someone has been providing the dean with footage of their experiments, particularly those involving the serum testing on animals. To make matters worse, their shareholders arrive at the lab and reveal that a major pharmaceutical corporation has bought out the company funding their project. This grants them ownership of the research, equipment, and the serum. Frank and his team are devastated by the news, but they can't do anything about it. In the heat of the moment, Zoe accuses Eva of being the informant to the dean, since she has access to their footage. She also points out the timing of events, claiming that everything happened after she showed up. Well, it happened after they all showed up, but that's beside the point. After everyone cools down, the team decides to take matters into their own hands by recreating the experiment and filming the process themselves. That night, they sneak inside the lab using a security pass kept by Eva. They then set up the necessary equipment and prepare another dead dog for the procedure. Where do you keep getting these, Frank? I'll never say. Everything goes as planned for the first few minutes. However, the situation takes a dark turn when Zoe activates the main power switch and is electrocuted. The whole team begins to panic as they discover that she has no pulse. Frank then anxiously sticks an adrenaline shot in her chest, but she remains unresponsive. At this moment, he notices the engagement ring still on her finger, making him realize that it was the cause of the electrocution. Suddenly, he places Zoe's lifeless body on the table, and his next move becomes apparent to everyone, using the serum to bring her back to life. Clay, Nico, and Eva immediately voice their concerns, reminding him of the ethical consequences of bringing a dead human being back to life. However, Frank argues that they will bear responsibility for Zoe's death and potentially face charges of manslaughter if they fail to act. This finally convinces the team, and they reluctantly agree to support him. Nobody thinks that ethics are more important than themselves. In the next scene, Frank brings out the serum and injects it into Zoe's body. Everyone then anxiously waits for her resurrection, but it doesn't come. Instead, Nico notices the security guard approaching their lab, so they quickly hide. When the guard finally leaves, the group returns to the lab. To their shock, they find Zoe sitting up, on the table. Frank then proceeds to examine her, but she suddenly grabs his wrist and asks if she had just died. Afterward, the team conducts an MRI scan on Zoe, revealing a startling discovery. They observe that her body has almost completely healed, and there's a significant amount of activity within her brain. Normally, humans only utilize about 10% of their brain's capacity, but in Zoe's case, she's using all 100. Bradley Cooper ain't got shit on me. It soon becomes evident that things are not entirely right with her. As she starts to tap into 100% of her brain's functions, she develops strange powers within herself. These include telekinesis, which allows her to manipulate objects with her mind; telepathy, which allows her to know exactly what others are about to say; telecaster, which is just a really cool guitar; and the unsettling ability to draw others into her traumatic memories. Meanwhile, the team grows increasingly cautious of Zoe's transformation, realizing that she is no longer the same person. Frank then advises the team to act as though everything is fine around Zoe until they can find a solution. Unbeknownst to them, she hears their conversation and becomes enraged. As the days pass, Zoe becomes increasingly aware of unusual changes within herself. Her fingertips and the injection site darken without reason, while the lights flicker erratically in her presence. Moreover, she discovers that she gets electric shocks whenever she comes into contact with water. One evening, Zoe turns to Frank and explains about all the strange changes she's experiencing. In one instance, she was trapped in a burning apartment building. However, Frank reminds her that it's just her traumatic childhood memory that has been manifesting as a nightmare ever since. It is revealed that Zoe was once trapped in a burning building, where she heard desperate cries for help. She also saw burnt hands clawing at her from beneath a door. Following this, Frank injects Zoe with a light sedative and leaves her to rest alone. Later, Eva visits her room to check on her briefly, but as she exits the room, she shockingly finds herself suddenly transported into a burning building. In the hallway, Eva sees a young girl clutching something in her hand. The girl then disappears, leaving Eva surrounded by burning hands, reaching out towards her. Suddenly, one of the hands grabs her wrist, causing her to wake up with a scream. As the others rush to her side, we see that her wrist has a burn mark on it. In the aftermath of this incident, Frank begins to acknowledge the similarity between Eva's dream and Zoe's recurring nightmares. But before he can fully grasp the situation, Nico discovers that a mysterious entity has been secretly monitoring their activities and downloading data from their system for several months. It becomes apparent that whoever is behind this knows their whereabouts and poses a threat to their safety. Realizing that they are in danger, Frank urges the team to vacate the lab without delay. Moments later, Nico notices that Zoe is no longer seated on the couch and scans the room anxiously. As the lights begin to flicker, she appears behind him seemingly out of thin air. Zoe then pleads with him to help her understand the bizarre changes she's going through. In a desperate attempt to manipulate him, she even leans in for a kiss, but Nico firmly rejects her. Unfortunately, this turns out to be a bad decision as the demon inside of Zoe awakens. Her eyes suddenly turn black and the room goes dark. Nico tries to calm her down, but she abruptly vanishes. Then, through a security camera feed, we see Nico being pulled into a nearby closet by an unseen force. He screams and begs for help, but no one can hear him. Moments later, Zoe returns and uses her telekinetic powers to crush the closet, killing poor Nico brutally. I hope they at least got to do 7 minutes of heaven first. In the next scene, the remaining group members arrive to check on Zoe and find her casually sitting on a couch. They question her about Nico's whereabouts, but she pretends to be unaware. As the seconds pass by, Clay grows increasingly worried and tries to call for help, but before he can do so, the power suddenly cuts off, leaving them with no means of communication. Frustrated and desperate for answers, Clay confronts Zoe and demands to know what she has done, but she remains eerily composed and uses her power to choke Clay with his own vape. Oh, poetry in motion. When the others catch wind of this, they immediately rush to intervene. However, despite their best efforts, the poor guy passes away. Frank then stares at his fiancée and notices her smiling creepily. This finally makes him realize that she's responsible for all of this. When she got access to 100% of her brain, she realized what a dork he was. Just then, the lights go off and Zoe vanishes into the shadows. Frank knows that she'll come after him, so he decides to kill her first. He prepares a syringe filled with lethal chemicals, typically used for euthanizing animals. He then relays his plan to Eva and urges her to remain hidden until he returns for her. Soon after, Frank finds Zoe in the hallway and tries to reassure her that he will find a solution. Tearfully, she asks if he still loves her, to which he admits that he does. However, she reads his mind and learns that he actually doesn't. Zoe realizes that he now perceives her as someone else, someone he no longer loves or wants around. In a fit of rage, she fatally snaps his neck, killing him in an instant. She then injects herself with the remaining serum to make her even stronger. Meanwhile, Eva prepares the syringe filled with lethal chemicals. She wants to finish off Zoe once and for all, but as she approaches her, she is unexpectedly plunged back into the burning building. There, she meets a young girl who turns out to be a version of Zoe. The girl then offers her a book of matches, revealing that she was the one who started the fire. At this moment, Eva finally understands why Zoe's been experiencing those nightmares. It's because she still feels guilty about starting the fire that claimed the lives of many people. Eva then comforts the young Zoe, assuring her that it wasn't entirely her fault. She pleads with her to open the neighbor's door and let go of her burdens. However, they are suddenly interrupted by the adult Zoe, who has now taken a demonic form. She approaches them slowly with blackened eyes and charred skin, but before she can get to them, the young Zoe opens the neighbor's door, causing a sudden burst of light to engulf them. We are then brought back to reality, and it turns out Eva has plunged the syringe into Zoe's chest. The latter finally realizes her mistake and apologizes, but Eva administers another shot, killing her effectively. Soon after, paramedics and firefighters rush into the facility. One of the firemen approaches Eva and offers her help, but at this moment, she realizes that the dead body of Zoe is missing. In a shocking turn of events, it is revealed that the fireman is none other than Zoe in disguise. Why? Eva tries to run away, but the sadistic biatch snaps her neck, killing her instantly. In the aftermath, Zoe lays down Frank's dead body on a table and injects him with the serum. He suddenly comes back to life, bringing the movie to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.